Hey guys, this is your lovely neighborhood weed cat, and today I want to talk about designing characters, using my old OC Ryle as a test subject. This is Ryle's original design. Besides my hideous art, there are three major things that hinder design. 1. You can't tell what he is. 2. There's a few cliches. And 3. His colors. And I'll talk about all those starting with the first one. What is he? An actor, a demon, a high school kid? With his generic design without many details that would tell you, one can't tell. But I can tell you now, because it's my character, he was a homeless kid from the Victorian era. So the first thing that I did when we were designing him to make this more obvious was to add to his body shape. I made him sort of a runt with a shorter stature and these scrawny limbs as compared to the rest of my OCs, as if he was malnourished, because if he was, he wouldn't grow too much, and you'd assume that a homeless kid would be malnourished. After this, I refined the body sketch and added one important element to his design: the bandages. These were a huge cliche in his first design, and I'll admit that I mainly put them in to avoid drawing his other eye. But I wanted to keep them because they fit with the aesthetic. But what I did was add more of them. If you add an unnatural item to a character, it seems jarring, but adding consistency to that item lessens that jarringness. Along the lines of cliches, one thing that you need to avoid is adding too many. 1 or 2 is fine, like how I have the bandages in Ryle's design, but having a lot of them depletes the originality and intrigue of the character. Some things I notice a lot of and would therefore avoid are things like dyed hair, hoodies, ripped or black jeans, Converse sneakers, the same emo fringe hairstyle, or some other way of covering up the right eye so you don't have to draw it, facial scars, and heterochromia. And I know out of the main ones that I listed in the beginning, a lot of those are because I've noticed a lot of people in the art community dress like that, with hoodies and black jeans and very casual, and Converse sneakers, especially because a lot of them are these high school kids, and for lack of a better word, edgy high school kids. But I would say that if you look around you, not everybody in the world dresses like you, and not all of your characters should dress like you either. So when you see that, sort of, fix it. Make some of your characters girlier, make some of them, super manly, some of them, super aggressive. They don't all have to dress in the same, Tumblr hoodie, black jeans style. On top of these very general cliches, you want to avoid cliches in your own designs. I know that for myself, I have one major cliche: rolling my character's sleeves. And I know I did it on Ryle, you'll see it later, but I decided to keep it because it fit. I can't stand not rolling my sleeves in real life, and that transfers over to my OCs. But I've been trying to avoid it, and I can see that it's cliche. So if you notice that a lot of your OCs have the same, hairstyle or outfit type, avoid that. Because when you do it, it'll be hard for audiences to set them apart. Get diverse in your designs. The best example I can think of is the characters from Edgeworld, which I don't actually watch, but when you look at them, they all have the same hoodie but in different colors. But that's not what sets them apart, it's that they have different hairstyles, and that's what sets them apart as long as different colors, or like characters from Osamatsu-san, if I pronounced that correctly. Something like that. If you're going to make the characters the same, do it for a reason, for an aesthetic purpose, and then give them one major thing that sets them apart that people will look to. Now, onto the outfit. The first thing I did when I was designing this was to pull up some references of Victorian children that I could use, and I determined what stuck out to me the most. There was the hat of the kid in the first picture, the fact that many of them use unbuttoned collared shirts, the long socks, and the suspenders. In the original design, I didn't think to what elements made me think of a homeless kid, I just designed it. Now that I have these elements, the point can be driven home further. Clothing is an important part of characters, but there are many pitfalls that you actually can avoid when designing it. Firstly, adding too many accessories. If your character has one major item that they like, it makes sense to add to their design and in quantity, like having an OC with 30 bracelets, or lots of piercings, or in Ryle's case, bandages. When you have a lot of things like 30 bracelets, and lots of piercings, and bandages, and fishnet stockings, and a bag, and yada yada yada, it gets to be too much. If you look around, not many people in real life dress like that. Because it's mainly just people with a shirt, pair of pants, and then maybe 1 or 2 accessories, and that says a lot about them. Try to keep your designs fairly consistent with how most people dress, but then add a few twists to make your character pop. Secondly, that sort of relates to this, is a lack of continuity. Characters with a jarring contrast, like wearing a ratty hoodie with a ball dress underneath, they add intrigue so this can be used correctly. But this goes for styles of clothing that don't have such a contrast, like adding a t-shirt and a skirt together, or a pink bow and a gray hoodie. These are these very general things, but they just don't go together. If you wouldn't wear it in real life, don't put it on your character. A lack of continuity in designs when adding pieces haphazardly also takes away from the point you're trying to make with your character. Like if Ryle had like a patchy hat and a torn shirt, but then there's a completely pristine dress pants, it would be confusing and take away from its overall homeless, shabby look. Make sure items work together and all in all flow together in a general theme. And here I just quick slapped up some line art, not much, TBH, sorry about that, but just a general art thing. I would recommend not coloring your sketches if you're trying to make a finished reference or a piece. It gets messy and complicated, especially if you're making a character reference, because these tiny details can get lost within the messiness of the sketch. But if it's a colored sketch, a personal reference, or a doodle, I won't stop you, man. Go for it. I do it all the time. Lastly, colors. I'm not going to go into a huge long spiel about color theory, because there are 20 million other videos you can watch on that, but I just have some general tips, especially in reference to character designs. Firstly, stick to a loose palette. Do not cross colors from other palettes or color families, even for making things pop. If you want to make colors pop, take a color from your palette and then make it more saturated or higher contrast, not from a family outside of your chosen palette. 2. Stick to either warm or cool colors. You can cross a bit for making things pop, but make sure the colors all have the same tint or either the level of warm or cool. 3rd, stick to one general saturation level. Make most things bright or most things dull, because having a mix confuses the eye. I'm fine with bright designs, just a lot of people use them a lot. Like, I'm not going to say, oh, edgy MS Paint, fill bucket, fully saturated color, that's not good. But if you're going to have a saturated character, make it consistent. And lastly, avoid unnatural colors in a natural design, and vice versa. Unless if you want to make like one tiny thing pop, like having a natural design and then like bright red eyes. That's fine, but don't add too many unnatural colors. So with coloring Ryle, I decided to use the gold color from his old tunic dress thing and eyes as a color to center my design around. So using a more muted brown gold palette, I got to coloring. The first thing I did was remove that hideous purple. Purple and yellow are complements, which means they're on the opposite sides of the color wheel. If my design was to be centered around yellow and I was using purple, I would desaturate the purple greatly so that it wouldn't contrast too much, and I would only use it sparingly. But I just decided to get rid of it completely as it didn't fit with the shabby Victorian kid image either. Otherwise, I used my gold-based color sparingly to add pop to his eyes and buttons, and everything else was in a generally muted tone. Lastly, we have information. The one thing that's more important than any aspect of a character design is the character's story. Notice that I based my entire design around one thing. Ryle is a homeless Victorian kid. I didn't design him and then write his story, but rather based his design on his story. No matter how simple it is, you should have a story in mind before designing a character, not design before a story. And that's it. I hope it's helped anyone struggling to find design character help, and also on screen I'm linking to a playlist of some resources that I also find useful, and I hope that they will aid you with points that I may have not brought up. So, have a good day, and get out there and design some OCs. See ya!